would like to remind you how dominant the like and the subscribe button are. If you click them now, YouTube will show this video to even more people. So if you want to support my message, and if you think more people should listen to my story, then please smash that like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.
As an American citizen, I just want to show you how white privilege that do not have to label them constantly as Caucasian Americans, but they use a prefix like Black American, Latino American, or Chinese American to show we are the other versus they are the American.
I have time on the show talking about China, its intentions, its crimes, its treatment of dogs. We've got pretty clear views on the Chinese government.
In the introduction, Tucker Carlson skillfully mixed the words China, America, Chinese, and our. Tucker intentionally not to define the Chinese. It means the Chinese living in China or the Chinese and Americans living in America.
Idea. China's on the other side of the world.
When Carlson is talking about the China is on the other side of the world, but when he used Chinese, he's not differentiating what the Chinese on the other side of the world thinking about America or the Chinese living in America thinking about America. He intentionally to confuse the audience.
Is the Chinese government's assessment of our democracy.
Many people within the United States actually have little confidence in the democracy of the United States, and they have various views regarding the government of the United States.
Well, when we discuss the U.S. government versus China government, he intentionally used the word Chinese to make you confuse the government for the Chinese in China or the Chinese for in America.
China's top diplomat sounds a lot like one of those right-wing white supremacist insurrections.
Here, definitely he's using the word China instead of Chinese, that blasting Biden administration. He used a face of a China's top diplomat.
We do not believe in invading through the use of force or to topple other regimes through various means, or to massacre the people of other countries, because all of those would only cause turmoil and instability in this world.
Radio. The Chinese government has utter contempt for the Biden administration and doesn't feel like hiding it anymore.
Again, when he goes back to using Chinese government instead of China to confuse the audience.
That the Chinese government is still, to this day, stonewalling international efforts to find the origin of the coronavirus.
Now Carlson is bringing the fear of coronavirus to our life in America, linking the words corona with Chinese instead of China.
The Chinese government delayed the release of genetic information about the virus.
Now, Tucker not only spread a fake news about China not releasing genetic coding of COVID virus quick enough, which China did 10 days after it reported to WTO. He also continued to link Chinese with COVID to make people remember Chinese with COVID virus.
It endangers all of us.
When Tucker said the COVID effect endangers all of us, does Tucker not talking about us, including the Chinese American who are American citizens?
And yet the Biden administration, totally paralyzed by the administration, has abetted the cover-up of the origins of COVID. No more linking a Chinese virus to China.
Here, Tucker showed his true color. He want to link the virus that he called as Chinese virus linked to China in the same way Chinese Americans link to China. That's what is the whole show about. The Chinese Americans are linked to China instead of linking to America.
Of New York announced that when you criticize the Communist Party of China, people in the U.S. die of hate crimes. Why?
Now, Tucker audaciously opposed Democratic officials' principle not to link Chinese Americans to the bias name called Chinese virus to China as a way to protect Asian Americans who are dying of hate crimes because the link.
It's always about words. That's what they want to control.
Finally, Tucker agreed that it is all about the words that he tried to control.
Now, you'd think the Chinese would appreciate this. It makes their job easier, but they don't appreciate it. In fact, it just increases their contempt for our leaders.
Again, Tucker using the words Chinese instead of China to actually include Chinese Americans who are American citizens in America.
There are many problems within the United States regarding human rights, and the challenges facing the United States in human rights are deep-seated. They did not just emerge over the past 4 years, such as Black Lives Matter. It did not come up only recently.
So there you have the Chinese government using Black Lives Matter as a weapon against the United States.
Again, Tucker used the words Chinese instead of China to make the link between the Chinese American to China.
You have the Chinese lecturing us about human rights. You never thought you'd see the day that happened.
Now, the white privilege is full in display, that white Americans cannot be criticized for their races against people of color. Black Lives Matters.
They call them Baisaw. The rough translation for the Mandarin is white liberal, and it is definitely not a compliment.
Here is another Carlson's white privilege in full display. When he tried to use a Chinese word, he doesn't have to learn the correct pronunciation or the correct translation. 白左 is not what he called 白扫, and it's not American liberal. Actually, it means white left.
As Chinese state media notes, quote, former U.S. President Obama was considered an advocate of Baisaw ideology. So was German Chancellor Angela Merkel in her decision to welcome more than 1 million third world immigrants to Europe, end quote. Other observations about Baisaw, as reported by Chinese state media, include the fact that they, quote, advocate inclusiveness and anti-discrimination, but cannot tolerate different opinions. Baisaw's political opinions are, quote, so shallow that they tend to maintain social equality by embracing ideologies that run against the basic concept of equality.
Ironically, Tucker used the words 白左 4 times, and he continued to pronounce incorrectly. It's not 白扫, it means 白左.
According to Wikipedia, many Chinese internet users use the term Baisaw, and we're quoting, to criticize the Democratic Party's emphasis on affirmative action policies, which are perceived as discriminating against Asians.
Here, Tucker is connecting China with the right-wing Chinese Americans who are mostly Trump supporters, also oppose affirmative action that they believe that hurting Asian Americans. Some Asian Americans, some Chinese American cares about affirmative action in America. The Chinese from China care less about what's going on in America. So Asian Americans, Chinese American care about Asian affirmative action has nothing to do with China. But Tucker want to make you to believe Chinese Americans are connected with China.
Quote. So whatever you think of the Chinese, they're definitely not stupid, and they're onto something here. Affirmative action hurts Asians. That is true, and everyone knows it.
Here, Tucker make a false statement that the Chinese in China actually have disagree with the affirmative action in America instead of the Chinese Americans in America disagree with affirmative actions in America. Because the Chinese in China knows about affirmative action because China too has affirmative action to protect minorities, and they all accept such a policy. I was born as a Chinese Muslim, and I was a beneficiary of China's affirmative action before I came to the United States. The affirmative action are accepted in China, but it is unknown to Americans in America.
A study of Harvard's admissions policies, for example, found that if the school admitted students solely on merit, as we thought they did, the percentage of Asian students in a given class would double to 43%. Now, Harvard doesn't want that many Asians. So it denies admissions to Asians because they're Asian. That is the definition of discrimination. That's what racism is. But it's everywhere. It's going on in all elite schools right now, as well as in almost every major corporation.
Tucker made another false statement about Harvard and other universities denied more admission of Asians based on merits. They denied Asian based solely on test scores. Test scores is not the only yardstick to determine the merits of a candidate.
Which showed unequivocally Asians were denied entry because they were Asian.
Now, Tucker made another false statement that Asians are denied admission to universities because they are Asian. That's totally contrary to my personal experience that I actually was accepted by American universities to the free graduate degree program only because I was Asian from another foreign country. In reality, African Americans were denied admission because they are African Americans. I was recruited to replace African American in the universities.
The attacks on standardized testing, by the way, have the same effect. We have standardized tests for a reason. They were created so that people who have no social connections, ambitious and talented immigrants, for example, could succeed in this country too. So we created standardized tests so that they could make it too. People from nowhere could succeed on their own talents. That was the idea, but not anymore. Standardized tests are disappearing thanks to lobbying from BISAW, from woke Democrats. The meritocracy is racist, they claim, so is...
I am actually one of the Asian parents oppose the standard test because the grades doesn't mean the person is smart or not. It only means they spend more time study. A lot of time they do it after school program. That the parents will pay extra to sign the kids up for extra homework. That creates inequity because not all the parents can afford after-school program. So it discriminates the families working class who do not have extra money to pay for extra homework for their kids. So for that reason, I oppose the standard testing.
Program. Liberals were mad that the classes were too Asian. You're seeing this every.
The Carlson make another false accusation about the liberal Democrat that they are opposed the class are to being too Asian. No, the class are being too middle class or upper class. That working class families, children do not have a chance to get a quality education.
We all see this happening. No one in this country mentions it. You know who else notices it? The Chinese.
Tucker make a false statement that no one in this country mentioned about it, but actually it was a Chinese American who filed a lawsuit against Harvard for affirmative action in new admissions that reduced Asian students in those schools. Now he think the Chinese who filed the lawsuit are not Americans. Now Tucker really speaks his mind. He sees no Chinese belong to America. The Chinese living in America are Chinese from China. Any Chinese living in America are not Americans that are concerned about American education.
Why wouldn't they? On the one hand, they're offended by it because the Baisaw's so-called equity programs always wind up hurting people who look like them. On the other hand, the Chinese government is pleased as they watch this.
To summarize, Tucker said those Chinese Americans who filed lawsuit to oppose affirmative action are not Americans. They are actually the Chinese from China. The Chinese government represent those Chinese Americans who filed the lawsuit against affirmative action, and they are agent of China.
I'd like to remind you how dominant the like and the subscribe button are. If you click them now, YouTube will show this video to even more people. So if you want to support my message, and if you think more people should listen to my story, then please smash that like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.